Welcome to the No Code MBA show. Today I'm here with James Eldersveld, and I think today's going to be a really fun conversation where we're going to brainstorm different no-code ideas, maybe a couple in particular business ideas, and more in the lens of how do we get started, what are different ideas that might kind of come out of the ideas that we're talking about, and using no-code to get these ideas off the ground, get the first users, and maybe how do we go from 0 users to 1,000 users. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. I think we were both talking before. We both just love brainstorming these ideas, and it's just kind of a fun thing to do. It's the kind of thing I would do even if it wasn't recorded. So it's
for sure, yeah. And I think obviously brainstorming ideas is really fun, but it's even more fun when you actually start an idea, right? And take it from your head or from the paper and actually just start building something. And sometimes it's easier said than done, but it can be overcomplicated too. And I think, just starting something, especially with the use of no code tools, is, it's never been easier to do. And, once you get started, if you give yourself a little time, I mean, you can build something out in half a day and have something going, which I think is great.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get started, James, do you want to tell everyone a little bit more about you, your background, and then we'll kind of get into some ideas?
For sure. Yeah, so I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I live with my wife and my 2 kids. My wife is Mandy, and I've got a daughter, Francine, who's 2.5, and a son, Leo, who is just 2 months, I think 2 months tomorrow. So we live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I am a small business owner. I own a business called Hexi, and Hexi is a service business that is focused almost entirely on IKEA products. So basically anything that has to do with IKEA that you don't want to do yourself, we take care of for you. So we do like personal shopping and delivery, product assembly, design consulting, a number of different services. But we found that there's a lot of things that people want to do themselves when it comes to IKEA, but there's a lot of things that they want to be hands off with. And so we kind of come in, where and meet them kind of where they are. Some people want like the full experience. We get the products for them, deliver it and assemble it. So kind of the white glove thing. Some people want to go to the store and grab the things themselves, but they don't want to touch the assembly. So there's a number of different use cases, but I've been doing that I started it probably about 10 years ago, and I took it, I was working a full-time job when I started it, just kind of started it as an idea and did it for a couple, 2.5 years, 3 years, and decided to take the leap and haven't really looked back since. So that's kind of what I do. As far as like the no code, I think it was January of 2020. So right before the COVID pandemic started, I somehow learned about no code. I think it was Webflow. I heard on a podcast something about Webflow and kind of dove in and started looking at that and realized pretty quickly the power of no code tools to allow me to do something with all these ideas that I have, right? Just to say like, hey, I can build little MVPs for a lot of these things, just test them out. If they don't work, I haven't lost anything other than maybe a little bit of time. And that time that I've spent, I've learned more about the tool that I built it on. So it's really like it's a win-win all around. And, so I when I wasn't able to work during the quarantine, I spent a lot of time learning that stuff. When the quarantine ended, I was back full throttle with my business, and I haven't really looked back as far as that's concerned. So I don't have as much time to spend on learning these things as I did then. But I here and there, I just like to play around with these tools, and I'm always trying to make progress in building little things for myself. And I've also used a lot of no-code tools to build things for my business. So, different systems and things like that, it pretty much all runs on a no-code tool. So.
Awesome. There's a lot of different directions that I want to go there. First, I actually would love to dig a little bit into Hexi. So if anyone is interested, it's Hexi, Hexi, higherhexi.com. And first, in terms of the no code tools that you use to run that business, what are those, and how have they been helpful? I'm particularly interested because one area with No Code MBA that I'm starting to go a little bit deeper into is internal tools, internal automations, Airtable, Google Sheets, Zapier, and there's a lot of other tools that I'm starting to explore that I think are really, really helpful for businesses. And I think it's also amazing and interesting how, these tools are helpful for, service businesses that, are small businesses. And they're also helpful for, billion-dollar startups that are,
absolutely,
it really is, spreads the entire gamut of types of businesses. So I think learning how you're using it in your business would be really, really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a huge opportunity, starting now and going forward in, with small business, physical small businesses, to help them automate different things and, use these no code tools to do that, become more efficient, modernize a little bit, and, help them run their businesses and save time. So like you said, from the smallest service businesses to huge companies, there's going to be a ton of opportunities. So, but as far as how I use them, it's funny, like if I look back to when I started, like I've really been using no code tools like all along, and I didn't really know that there was anything called no code until 2020. So back when I built my first website, it was built on something called iWeb. I don't know if you remember that. It was like a software that came with every Mac, and it was like Apple's own like website builder. So I built my first website on that, and then started using Typeform a little bit after that, to take orders and quote requests and things like that. I've used Google Sheets pretty much throughout to keep track of a lot of different parts of the business. And within the last year, I had switched from Google Sheets to Airtable. So, and I think Airtable, I don't know, I think Airtable is absolutely phenomenal. Like the more I learn about it, it's just like you can do so many things, and I'm working on a plan that I think that I can almost run the entire business on Airtable. Like I'm working on trying to figure out the invoicing piece and how that works, because there's a lot of data that I have to keep track of as far as like customer orders and things that are in stock and out of stock and like partially fulfilled orders, and I think based on what I know about Airtable and its capabilities, I think that I can create a system that will kind of run that whole thing, and I'm pretty excited about that. But yeah, I think especially with like integrations with Stripe and because I use Stripe for payments, and that's easily integrated with Airtable through a number of different means. But yeah, so those are the ones that I mainly use. I'm working on building a Glide app right now. I don't know if this is the best one to use for this. I could probably use something like Softer as well, but an app that I'll hand a business card to a customer after I've delivered or assembled, and that will have a QR code on it, to the app, and it will ask for a review on Google or Facebook, through that app, right? Because that's something that I'm really trying to get more of, is like these Facebook and Google reviews.
Yeah.
I would get reviews from people that, are the type of people that write reviews, like, cause they just do that. If they're happy with something, they just go and write a review. But I'm really trying to push in more and just like ask people face to face, like, hey, if you're satisfied, would you please just write a review on Google or Facebook, and and give them kind of a means to do that. And then also maybe, have some more marketing things within that app to, for more opportunities. So, but that's the thing that I love about, no code and these tools, is like, I can think of any idea, and it's right now it's most valuable in my own business, right? And I can create that idea for the business. So I think it's phenomenal. And And another use case is like, so I use Zoho for my invoicing. I don't know if you're familiar with Zoho. I love Zoho. Like it really does well for what I need it for.
Hmm.
But I subscribe to like Zoho One or whatever it is, and I don't know, it's like $40 a month or something, and I get more than that value out of it. But the only thing I use is the books, the invoicing part of it, and I think that I can really recreate that same thing experience and even make it better in Airtable. I can really make it exactly what I want. So that's sort of like an unbundling thing right there. You look at something that you're using and
Right.
you're only using like one thing out of the hundreds that you could be using. You're paying for the whole thing, really. Are you able to create that for yourself and really make it exactly what you want?
Yeah, totally. Like if you're able to build that on your own, that's $40 a month adds up. It's almost $500 a year, right? And it's
Absolutely. Yeah.
like
And it's like, it's like I said, it's worth it to me because I get that value out of it. But obviously, it goes right to your bottom line if you could save that money.
yeah, totally. I like am trying to constantly think about that with No Code MBA. Like, okay, I'm using this software but you pay monthly and it adds up. And how can I maybe
Yeah.
do this on my own? And I think what's also
And
really cool about what you're saying, if you're basically building this custom software with Airtable that
yes.
to run your business. That without No Code, it just not only would it be take too much time to do with code. If you were going to hire a consulting firm to do it, it would probably cost $50,000,
Absolutely.
and it wouldn't even probably be very good. Or if it saw, maybe it would work, but it would probably have bugs. It would probably have things that you would
Yeah.
change with it over time, and it doesn't make sense. So
No.
especially for small businesses, there's no option to use technology in many cases. You just have to kind of
No.
do it with anything off the shelf or hack things together in ways
Right.
that don't really work well.
And if you're going to do something custom, I mean, you continuously are going to have to update that and have people working on it and spend more and more money on it when you're using something like Airtable and you're paying whatever it is a year or a month, and that's continuously getting improved for you by the company, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, and then you have to pay more
Um,
for that. Yeah.
yeah, and another huge value is like by building these systems, that are specifically for your company, like you're also adding value to your own company for, whether you want to sell it someday or
Right.
whatever. Like you have this thing that's like, hey, I built this system specifically for this business, and you can run the whole thing right from here. So, it's kind of like a turnkey thing to hand over to somebody else, or yeah, or if it's like, hey, if I want somebody else to run the business instead of myself, it becomes much easier when you have everything in one spot than if you're like, hey, we're going to piece like 20 of these different softwares together in order to do this.
Right. 100%. Yeah. And with Hexi, are you the one doing all the deliveries and assembly? Do you have people that
Yeah. So
you have a team at this?
cur-
Yeah.
currently it is just me. I have hired people in the past, larger assembly jobs that, had specific timelines that I had to get done. But I'm pretty amazed at the amount of things that I've been able to do, just on my own. And that's another thing that kind of automating some of these processes has given me some more time to be able to do that, right? Like, I've built systems in the past and those systems have broken. So you create new ones and, those ones get stretched. And so you're always kind of trying to improve on things. And it's getting to be the time when I need to get out and, start work. If I want to really grow it, like I think it can get out of, working in the business so I can work on it at least, for some amount of hours. And I've been in discussions with some people about starting it in different areas and yeah, so there's a lot of things that I'd like to do. It's just kind of figuring out what's the right timing and who are the right people to kind of partner with and help out with that. So we'll see where it goes.
Right. Totally. Yeah. It definitely, businesses get a lot more complicated with as more and more people.
Exactly. It's like I
Um,
have I have headaches right now that are very, very small and come up very seldom, but it's like you're going to get more of those as you grow, but that's part of it, right? It's I think as you figure that out, you can grow and you can kind of minimize those headaches with different things. One is finding the right people. That's probably the most important thing. But yeah, I'm excited.
yeah. And for IKEA furniture, do people, does, I guess, how do people, are people finding you on Google as a word of mouth? And if I want to, if I go to IKEA.com, are they offering some sort of delivery and assembly, and how do you
Yeah.
compete with that?
Yeah. So when I started the business, I think the whole reason why I started it was one, because the closest IKEA to Grand Rapids is 2 hours away near
Mm,
Detroit. And also their shipping costs were just like outrageous, because they use third party freight for any of their shipping. And, it's crazy expensive. It was crazy expensive. They've come down quite a lot on that, I think, because they have to compete with the Wayfairs and the Amazons and things like that. But they're still,
right.
they're subsidized. They have to be subsidized in that cost because the true cost of shipping. Nobody knows anymore that there is a true cost of shipping, right? Because everybody just subscribes to Amazon Prime and they think, hey, I get this free in 2 days. Well, that costs Amazon a lot more than to ship that than what you would think probably. And I mean, they get volume discounts and that sort of thing. But yeah, so anyway, so you can uh you also cannot order every single thing that they have available through the website. There are certain things that you have to go to the store to get. And I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason to that, but I think, part of their business model, which is smart, is to get people in the store, right?
Right.
Because they have so many fantastic products. Like you walk through like the marketplace there and it's like, oh, a set of 6 wine glasses for $5. Like I can't afford not to buy it, right? It's like, and
Yeah.
those are like their super high margin things, like it doesn't cost them hardly anything to make them. And so people end up buying a bunch of those things when they're in the store, and that's great because it doesn't cost them that much. But IKEA makes a ton on those things.
Right.
They within the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, they acquired TaskRabbit. I don't know if you're familiar with TaskRabbit. So they
Mhm.
bought TaskRabbit, and that's, I think that TaskRabbit probably saw that a number of their requests were for IKEA product assembly, and TaskRabbit's not operational in where I am,
Mm,
but I think what I've noticed is that people really want a higher level. Well, not everybody, but there are certain people that want a higher level of service around these things, right? Like it's not just like, with TaskRabbit, you have, someone that can do it, that can assemble your IKEA stuff, or they can fix your kitchen sink. It's not like a
right.
specialized person that's in like, all we do is IKEA. And it's, there's a place for that. But, I've just decided that this is going to be my niche, and I'm going to, brand myself as the expert in this, or I call myself a hexpert, the Hexi.
Right.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I keep on learning. I learn a lot about their customers. And I think I started out wanting to kind of compete on price and a lot of these things. And I've realized now that there's a certain type of customer that I want to go after, and it's someone that realizes what the value is. It's really it's saving them time. It's things that, yeah,
Mm,
could they do it themselves? Probably, but it's a huge hassle, right? It's like this is basically like, you tell us what you want, we send you an invoice for the products and delivery, and it shows up at your door. Like it's a super
right.
simple thing. It's like, hey, a lot of people will ask their friends if they're going to, hey, can you pick this up for me or whatever? Like, it's like, we're your friends that go for you. We've just created a super easy process for you to, tell us what you want and, pay for it, and, kind of forget about it after that.
Yeah. No, I think there's a few key lessons and interesting things that I'm hearing there. So one, I think, is finding a niche and branding yourself as the expert in that niche is really, really valuable and makes a lot of sense, like you're saying. And not only does it make sense from a marketing perspective, it also just makes sense from a quality perspective of what you're going to get as a customer. So there's a reason it works
Yeah.
for marketing. Kind of the analogy I'm thinking is, imagine two different consultants. You want to get your website built. One is, a no code consultant that lists 8 different tools that they work with. And let's say you want Webflow. One is a Webflow consultant. All they do is build Webflow sites all day long. You're most likely going to pick the Webflow consultant because they're going to, there's a higher chance that it's going to be a more successful project. And it makes total sense for what you're doing as well. You want IKEA furniture, you want it to be assembled correctly. And I would much rather, go with the business that exclusively does IKEA. It's kind of like if you have a health issue, you want to go to the specialist for you. You want someone, if you're getting surgery done, you want the surgeon who does that same surgery 3 times a day, every single day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
And so I think that, that's like the power of niching into what you're doing. The other thing, it actually sounds like, it's a really great niche for these areas that you said that there isn't an IKEA within 2 hours of Grand Rapids, and TaskRabbit doesn't even serve Grand Rapids, so you're not even competing with them in that aspect.
Not in that sense. I think that something that I'm exploring, like I said, trying out some different areas, is I really think, based on what I know, I think that it would work as well or even better in an area that has an IKEA, right? Because you have a lot more people that are shopping there.
Right.
Not many people have vehicles that are large enough to fit the stuff that they want to buy. So they either have to like rent a truck or a trailer, or they got to borrow something from somebody if they want to go to the store and pick it up. There are options, I think, at IKEA to buy it there and then have it delivered locally. But then you have to leave the stuff at the store and wait. Maybe they do it the next day or same day. I don't know if they do, what their timeline is like, but this is something where it's like, hey, you can go to the store and, have it delivered the same day, or right after you leave the store, have it delivered right then. And I think that there's a lot of different use cases where I think you'd get a lot more assembly work as well, obviously, because there's a lot more people that are buying it. There are people that are going to go to the store and that are going to get their own transportation, but they get it home and then they say, I don't want to deal with the assembly portion of it. And so then I guess you might compete a little bit with some of these other services in the bigger cities, but that's okay. I mean, I think that there's plenty of room for that. Just the fact that these things exist, means that there's room for competition on that.
I totally agree with that. And I think something I think about a lot with businesses too is like, if there's a lot of competition, that means there's a lot of demand. And especially, if you're not trying to build, the next billion-dollar company, you're just trying to make a business. You don't need to capture all that demand. You just need to capture a slice of that demand. And I totally agree with you. I think, I live in DC, and if I want to go to IKEA, it's a pain. I don't have a car, so I'd have to borrow a car or Uber or it would Metro. It would be a pain to get there. I'm sure I could order delivery through IKEA and have them come, and then they coordinate with TaskRabbit, which already isn't going to be the best experience. You kind of know that off the bat, and it's probably going to be really, really expensive also. So
and even like the expensive part is not really a problem, because people are willing to pay for good work, but it's also good service, right? It's like, I can offer people top-notch service, communication, and these things, and a huge corporation, they're just not able to do that, right? So it's like, it's just what are you willing to go through as a customer? Like, what's the experience that you want to have? And it's almost like, we give an experience along with getting your things, as opposed to like just somebody dropping off your products because they're a delivery company, right? We know about every single product that we are are delivering. We know if it's good, we're able to talk with the customers about that. And so, yeah, I think that there's a lot of value in I used to worry about price and, whether or not I was competing, like close to their pricing and I don't even pay any attention to what they charge anymore. I think, there's many times when, it may cost more than what they would charge, but, I may be able to get it to you quicker, and certainly it's going to be a better experience all around.
Yeah, and I think that's another really valuable point of sometimes I think businesses worry too much about price and they're trying to make sure that they're, less expensive than their competitor and focusing so much on that, when in reality, you're much better off focusing on the service that you're offering.
100%.
Sometimes in a lot of cases, it's actually better to charge more because those customers are going to be less price sensitive, probably less concerned. Sometimes customers that are really concerned about price, it's just harder to deal with totally, or they're pickier as customers. And sometimes a higher price also signals higher quality. And people kind of see that as well. I mean, obviously within reason, but yeah.
As long as you're able to, deliver on that. And I think, what you said is focusing on what you're good at and marketing yourself as the expert, or like whatever, you're going to deliver this experience for the customer. Like I don't ever focus on negative things about IKEA, right? Because like I want people to buy their products. Like I think their products are the best products out there, like the best design products out there for the price. Like there's nothing else that comes close, right? Because the next thing up, that might be even somewhat similar design is probably like West Elm or something like that. And that's like 3 times more expensive, starting at 3 times more expensive. So anyway, I've always made it my practice, like you can always find negative things to say about other things and other people's services, but if you just focus on what's good about your service, like people are good, it's going to resonate with people. People can figure out negative things on their own. Like I don't need to tell anybody anything negative about somebody else's service.
Yeah, I love that. I totally agree. One more thing before we move on to newer ideas. I think that's kind of striking me. What's really cool about Hexi is it's really cool as this and works. I could see how it works really well as what you're doing in one city. It's like if you wanted to try and grow this to every city in America as like this premium IKEA delivery and assembly, like it could, if you could, right? Like it's definitely possible. And I think that's also an interesting lesson for businesses where, it can be as big or small as you want it to be, or as your goals are. It doesn't have to be, but it's actually also really exciting with what you're working on. Like if you wanted it to be a massive company, like it could be. I think that there's a ton of opportunity.
Yeah.
You're saying,
right. It could be, and that's sort of what I'm thinking is like building some of these systems that I'm talking about. Right? Like you can't grow it and become a larger company without having these systems in place, right? So the things that I'm building, they are going to work great for me, and they're going to make things way easier for me, but they're also, it's part of a plan to be able to grow and to set it up for that, right? Because having that in place before really starting to try to grow is going to be very important to keep everything organized and all that. So yeah, that's a huge value that I see in these no code tools and the systems that I have built and that I will continue to build.
Yeah. So is that the current plan to try and what are your future plans? Are you still
no, I mean, I don't have anything concrete, but I have been talking to some people in different areas of the country, people that are close, in cities that are close to IKEA, and saying like, hey, what would it look like to do a pilot program? Let's talk about that and just figure that out. I think the most important thing for me is, part of the reason that I'm successful is because of me, right? Like the way that I deal with customers and the quality of work that I that I do, the communication that I'm able to offer. And, so it's really important to figure out, okay, how do I find somebody that's similar to me, or like, that is willing to do work in the way that I do it, right? And that's really the challenge, I think, with any employees. And I don't have a whole lot of experience with hiring or managing people. I think that's, finding people that I know and able to trust in different areas, that can maybe help jumpstart these things in those areas will be a big help. So yeah. So that's kind of the plan, is just to maybe try some. And that's another thing, is that there's nothing preventing me from, I can just start running Facebook ads in DC if I wanted to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just say like, hey, and I can add something to my website that says, hey, we service this area as well. And then you just see whether or not anybody's placing orders, or see what kind of response you get. And, you haven't lost anything. So it's a pretty low barrier to, as far as cost, I think, getting started and trying to see kind of what the demand is.
Yeah.
I already know that there's demand. It's not, I mean, there may not be like all this demand, people saying like, oh, I wish that this was here, but like once they know about it, it's like, it just makes sense. And, it will grow organically. I mean, most of the business that I've gotten to this point it's all word of mouth. Like one person hears about it and they use it and they're like, oh my gosh, like I just had this amazing experience with Hexi. Like they went and got my products for me. They delivered it. They assembled it. Like it was so easy. And, and that sort of thing just spreads like wildfire. And it immediately creates trust in somebody else's mind as well. Like, oh yeah, like I'll try that out because so-and-so did it, or a friend of a friend, or, whatever.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. And it makes sense that, one of the most challenging parts would be making sure that the service is up to the standard that you're currently offering, and incentivize. It's like how do you, I mean, this is like the ongoing challenge with building a team or business or partners, of making sure everyone, how do you get people to care as much as you do? And that's always a big challenge. But yeah,
you'll never find anybody that cares as much as you do, right? But that's the challenge, is how do you manage that? And is it, I mean, that's a challenge in any service business right now. I think, it's like people can't even find good people to work. So it's like, does it work to offer them more money? Is that the thing? Or is it, it's all part of the business and figuring it out. And that's part of the fun thing about being in business, is figuring out these challenges, how to overcome them. And, if you're able to do that, then there's rewards in it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I'm excited personally to see kind of where it goes. I love the idea. I really do. I think there's like a lot of potential in so many different areas with what you're doing.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just to bring it full circle of kind of what you said with using no code tools to build these systems within the business, is what even kind of totally, like, you need to have the systems in place before you really expand a business. And that applies to everything. It's kind of like, if you're building a car, if you're using duct tape, as it starts going faster, it's going to fall apart. You really want things to be in a good place. And I'm thinking about a lot of that with No Code MBA as well. And I'm starting to think about, bringing on someone to help with different marketing tasks and different administrative tasks and things like that. And in order to do that, I need to, you need to take all these, I need to take all these systems that are kind of in my head or things that I'm doing, and, put it into either, whether it's an Airtable or some sort of an app or whatever I'm going to do that kind of is able to, bring on other people and, create these systems that work. So it's definitely something that I think about a lot as well. Yeah.
Yep. That's good. I mean, I think no code tools are great for like onboarding people and like, transferring that knowledge that you have to somebody else. So like step-by-step, guides of, this is how you do it. This is everything that you need to know in order to do this part of the business that I've been doing. I think that's a really important thing, is the documentation and getting stuff out of out of your head. And I don't do that enough, but I think it frees up when you do it, it frees up your mind. Like you don't constantly have to be remembering these things. It's just like, okay, it's here. Somebody else can deal with that. And I can move on to things that maybe create more value for the business.
Yeah, totally. Cool. So let's switch gears a little bit now to some new ideas. So you had mentioned recently you bought a domain, which I think is really good, and maybe talk a little bit about what this idea is, and then maybe where it's at, and we can brainstorm around it.
Yeah, so I actually got this idea from listening to your podcast when you were talking. It was the Unbundling LinkedIn podcast, right?
Yeah.
And I thought it was a great episode, and you guys had a lot of great ideas, and it just kind of struck me like, almost all the ideas that like people are talking about building, whether it's with no code or not, without no code, like in like the software tech space, like they really all kind of like there's not a lot of new ideas, right? It's not a lot of like 0 to 1 ideas. It's a lot of 1 to N ideas. And this idea, like the furthest back I could think of, like when I heard about like unbundling, is like there's this Craigslist graphic in this. I did some research, and it was back in like 2010. I think this guy wrote a blog, and he had a graphic of like the Craigslist homepage, and he had like little arrows pointing to each category, and then at the other side of that arrow was like a company that had started, so for like temporary housing or like sublets, like it was Airbnb, and for like the jobs, it was Jobber or not Jobber, like Indeed.com or Monster.com or something like that. So like this idea of unbundling was like, look at these companies and see how you can part them out and create standalone businesses with like the verticals of within that business. And anyway, so it just got my wheels turning that these are fun things to think about and to hear about. One, to think about ideas of how you could unbundle some company into smaller pieces, but also to hear stories about who's working on things and where did they get the inspiration from to do that, or who has built something that has been successful. And when you talk about like that unbundling of Craigslist, like I don't think that a lot of these companies were like, hey, let's look at Craigslist and find a business idea. Like it just happened to be that they built these ideas and they happen to fit into these categories of what's on Craigslist. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I think that it's a good exercise to come up with ideas, is to look at software that's out there and say like, hey, like, how can I pick one part of this apart and build something? And to go even further, like, how can I do that myself? Like, can I do that with no code? What's the easiest way to try it out and see if it would work? So anyways, so like I have like a list of like side projects that I want to work on. And, one is a job board. One is a newsletter. Another is like a classified or like marketplace type thing, and a couple of different ones. Like those are like kind of the categories. But I thought that this would be an interesting like newsletter, like a weekly newsletter, or every other week or something like that, where you do kind of like some good research on what ideas could come out of unbundling a certain product, or who's doing this right now, or just a way to kind of stimulate people ideas and help people think themselves of what could they start, or I don't know. I just think it's a fascinating thought exercise, and it's also practical because it can lead to people starting new things. Yeah, so I guess that's kind of the idea that came out of it, is to do some sort of a newsletter just with some content like that. And I think there's probably a lot of other things that you could do with it, but that's kind of where I started, and I went on Namecheap and I found can you hear, are you losing me here?
I got you.
You're
Yeah.
good.
It's
Okay.
good.
I found the domain unbundled.tech. And so I bought that and I thought, oh, that'd be a cool domain for it. And so, yeah, so I haven't gotten a whole lot farther than that, other than I've been doing, I've written down some different ideas of companies that, you could do. And I've started to do a little bit of research, and I'd like to get some content on, a handful of issues, maybe 3 or 4 before I started kind of putting it out there as something that people could sign up for.
Yeah, yeah. It's awesome. I mean, I really like the idea. I think we're actually going to do an unbundle Airbnb episode at some point in the next month or
Nice.
so. And I think like people are really interested in this concept of unbundling and all the businesses that can come out of these large platforms. And there's so many, different businesses out of so many different platforms that I think the opportunity for content is really good. There's a lot
Mm-hmm.
there. I think people are, always interested in different business ideas and how to build them. So I really like the idea. So let's brainstorm, maybe like, okay, what we have the idea, what's the best way to, get your first, 500 subscribers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, some form of like marketing it on Twitter or, would be great. You can market to the right people, people that are in the no code space. And I don't, I'm not sure, like, I don't want no code necessarily to be the focus. Like it's more
Yeah.
of like a peripheral thing. Like, hey, like if
Yeah.
you wanted to do this, like this is a way that you could do it. So it's like exposing people to that, but it's more about the just kind of like the ideas and the
Right.
unbundling part of it. But yeah, I mean, obviously creating some sort of a landing page to get signups, but then, you know, maybe with that, I don't know what software I would use as far as a newsletter creator. I think there's a lot of them out there. MailChimp, MailerLite, I think Substack, obviously. Yeah, there's a bunch of them out there. So I'd welcome any advice on what you think is the best thing to start something with. But yeah, I guess I hadn't thought too much yet about marketing and how to get those. So I'd welcome any ideas that you had.
Yeah, totally. I'm trying to think. So I think what you mentioned first of getting, the first few issues written before launching, I think is really smart. Maybe even five or more, right? The more,
Mm-hmm.
I think also with content businesses, the more like you can batch, the better, especially if it's a side project. The more you can get all this stuff written, otherwise it'll be no matter what, I think the content projects definitely there's a lot of time involved. They're kind of getting the system. I think what you were saying of constraints, like how can you add constraints to the newsletter? Like one idea, one, whatever it is, like 2 ideas, one X, 3Y, whatever. Like I think those formats can be helpful and constraints. That's something I would probably do, or something I've thought about.
Yeah, it's something that people can kind of expect, right? Like they know,
Yeah.
like, hey, you're gonna get this, you're gonna get this, and then obviously at some point you can say like, oh, if you want to get more of these, maybe it's like a premium thing, or if you want to get something that's even completely different than these categories. Another thing that I really, like we talked about earlier, is kind of like this crossroads of no code and like SMB, like physical small
Mm-hmm.
businesses, right? Like I think that I would like to somehow also not just do like not just do tech stuff, but also do like physical businesses, right? To pull people in from kind of both sides, right? Because I'm kind of part of like a number of different like communities on Twitter as far as like who I follow, and like
Yeah.
I'm like into the no code space, but I'm more into this physical like SMB space because of what
Mm-hmm.
I do, right? Like so
Right.
that
Yeah.
speaks to me as well. But I think that there's really this like, I see a lot of the people that I follow in this like SMB space, like they are starting to figure out what no code stuff is, and they're
Right.
starting to like talk more about that, right? So like I think like bringing those two things kind of together, and like I think you can there's a lot of physical businesses that you can unbundle as well, and you can start your whatever service business in a certain vertical that's just a part of some other business. And so I'm kind of excited about that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, I love that. Because you're an expert in that. You have a lot of credibility as owning your own business in the service business space, and using the no code tools to help with it. So I think that makes a lot of sense to me. And I also like, I really love service businesses because it's very approachable for anyone who wants to start it. They really can. And you can do it alone too. You don't even need to like, it's the best way, in my opinion, to just start making money on the internet in some way. It's much easier than trying to build, a job board or all these other things that are digital based. So I actually really, I really like that angle. And then one other kind of, as I'm thinking, about marketing or getting those first, subscribers, I think, one thing that I've found really helpful recently with Twitter and marketing on Twitter is there's a lot of different, web apps that do this. I've been using Hype Fury, which just lets me sit down for an hour, schedule a bunch of tweets, and then they go out all week. So like yesterday I scheduled a bunch of tweets, and now I don't have to worry about it. I can always add more if I think about it, but at least now I know there's going to be content going out. And I think that that's really helpful. And I could see Twitter being a really good, channel for the newsletter. And I think the big thing with newsletters, to me, it seems, is just consistency. Like if it's coming out every week, like it just builds over time to as people kind of continue to see it. But
I think some sort of like interactive thing as well, like where like, hey, I can think about these, whatever, say like 4 ideas per thing, but like also to have some outlet for people who are like readers or whatever to say like, oh, like what about this or what about that, like where like whether Twitter is a good place for that to happen or somewhere, because I think that people in general, they like to interact with things. They like to give their own ideas, and like I want to hear what other people's ideas are too. Like I love hearing how people think about different businesses, and like I can think of any number of different ways to unbundle some specific company, but you might think of 100 other ways that I don't think of, right? Like because your mind works differently with ideas. So I think that would be a cool aspect, is just to hear what other people think.
I love that, actually. Even like that's even a cool idea. I could almost see that being like a business in itself, to help newsletters get more engagement with their readers, imagining some sort of thing that's at the bottom of every newsletter that is prompting people to engage, that might automatically include stuff in the next newsletter. That I could see potentially something with that, just because I think every newsletter would love to have more engagement, and the more people that are engaging, the better.
Right.
So I think there's something interesting there if you can make it easier for people to engage with newsletters.
Yeah, where it's not like, I mean, I don't want to jump to like say like, oh, I want to create like a community, but like it's like, make it be like someone is contributing to something without having too much like buy-in, right? Like where they can just like give their 2 cents and then be done with it. It doesn't have to be like this whole board of like, oh, this person says this, and everybody replies, oh yeah, that's a great idea, or it's not. Like, no, just like give your idea and then be done with it. And so kind of a pretty low barrier to entry as far as being able to engage with that.
Yeah, totally. And then I think the other thing that's cool about just this niche of newsletters is like anything that's business related is it's quite valuable if you can build up a subscriber base as
Mm.
opposed to kind of a newsletter about music or whatever. It's hard. It's easy to sell people things who are it's more valuable to businesses for like sponsorships and stuff if it's, you know,
Sure.
business related in some
And
way.
I could see how it would be valuable to, like, you know, certain no code tools, right? Like if you're talking
Yeah.
about like all these business ideas and how people could start them, and like what the kind of the easiest way for them to get into this would be. Like, yeah, I don't know. I haven't really thought about like the monetization aspect. I mean, I've thought like, yeah, I would like to monetize this somehow, but
Right.
I think that, you know, there's different ways to there's a couple different ways to think about when you're starting a product. You know, one is like, okay, I'm going to come up with this strategy to monetize it right now, or I'm just going to like build this thing and see how many users I can get, and then like figure out the money part. Like if you get
Right.
users, then you can
Yeah.
figure out a money part later on. And so that's kind of how I think about it. You know, it's not like I'm not diving into this thing full time, but like it's just I think it'll be a really fun project. And I don't know, I think there's a lot of people out there that are like you and me that, you know, constantly are coming up with ideas and love engaging on that level. And, you know, I don't know, I'm sure that there are other newsletters out there that talk about, you know, business ideas and things like that, but I don't know, I just think it's an interesting angle, and we'll see if anybody else thinks so.
Yeah, no, totally. One kind of tangential automation that I've started exploring with the No Code MBA newsletter is I'm using this software called feedly.com, I think, or something like that. And it basically lets you create kind of like RSS feeds. Like you can pick any topic or follow any blog on the internet, and then it'll create this group of articles about that topic. So for me,
Okay.
I'm following, a bunch of different no code blogs essentially, or no code tool
Oh
blogs.
yeah.
And
Okay.
then I'm using Zapier to turn that into an RSS feed. Essentially, you have to like, because and then it's like your own RSS feed that I have now hooked up to MailerLite, which is my email platform, but I think you could do it on any email platform probably, or most of them. And then every week when I do a no code MBA email, I can just check off like the articles I want. It's all there for me. And then I can have like a week, news, no code news section of like articles
Oh,
from the internet. And I'm also I'm trying to figure out a good way with that to also pull that into my Webflow site, so there can just be an area of like news from around the internet about no code. But I think what's kind of interesting to me about that automation is you could really do it for any different topic that you want. This would be more of a curation, newsletter where you're curating, news about any different topic. So I thought I was just interested and kind of thought it would be cool, to anyone who wanted to create like a newsletter of, 3 links a day about a specific topic. This would make it like very easy to do a newsletter like that.
yeah. Okay. That's good to know. I'll check that one out.
Yeah.
What do you recommend MailerLite? Is that
I like it. Yeah, it's less expensive than Mailchimp. I found it to be a good mix of like quality, but less expensive. Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, research is Ghost another one? Ghost,
Um, I've
is
heard of
that a
them.
newsletter?
I haven't played around with it too much, honestly. So I'm not totally sure. Yeah, I'm not totally sure about Ghost.
Yeah, I think I'll probably just start it with whatever the most affordable thing is, and then, you know, if you need to change it, if it needs to be changed later, that can always happen.
Yeah, you're right. I've switched from Mailchimp to I switched from Mailchimp to MailerLite. So it's a little bit of a pain because you have to export your list and import it and stuff, but it's not really that bad. Yeah.
Okay.
Sweet. Well, we're coming up on an hour, so let's wrap
Yeah.
up here. But I guess first, is there anything else you want to share anywhere that people can find you if they want to follow
Oh,
what you're up
yeah.
to?
I mean, I think there's probably a lot of it. You know, there's we could go on for another hour on different ideas and things like that. But we might have to save that for another time. But yeah, I'm excited for, kind of what you have going on with No Code MBA, and I love seeing progress that you're making. It's very obvious that you are making progress, and yeah, I wish you a lot of success with that. And any way I can help out with that, I'm glad to put my 2 cents in as well.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have a few minutes? Do you want to?
Yeah, for sure.
I can tell you a few things that I'm thinking about. So I guess right now, basically, the way No Code MBA is set up, people can go in. It's all self-guided. You pick what you want to learn about. And there's a few different things. I guess first on the marketing side, the way that I'm kind of thinking about it is like daily content on like what am I doing on a daily basis, a weekly basis, and a monthly basis. So daily, I'm working on short form videos for TikTok and Reels and YouTube Shorts, and I'm hoping that'll kind of I'm going to keep improving on how to like make those videos and more engaging and more likely to kind of, go viral or pick up interest. And Twitter, I kind of continuing to invest in Twitter, I think is a really valuable marketing channel. One thing I've been thinking about is just putting in my calendar like almost like a weekly webinar. I would be, maybe a webinar about how to build a no code or something like that. Something attention grabbing for someone who's new or newer to no code. And it could be something that is on the website. So if someone's browsing the website and they're interested, they could register for it, and it's every week, so they could just schedule for the next one. I could market it on Twitter through my email list. And my thought is, if I do that once a week, then you're going to get people. Hopefully that'll kind of grow and become a bigger thing over time. But I would imagine that there would be a pretty high conversion of people who join that to people who sign up. Even if they just sign up, okay, let me do a monthly subscription and start learning. I would imagine that there might be a pretty good ROI on it. So I'm thinking about doing that. I think that would be an interesting, at least experiment. I could do it for a month. And if it, if no one shows up or doesn't lead to any sales, then I could stop it. But yeah.
What would an example be of something that you do? Like how long would it be, like a half hour type thing, or an example?
Yeah, probably a half hour, I would guess, like, or maybe up to an hour, like a half hour. I could do a quick overview of different no code tools and things that you can build with it, and then answer questions, maybe do like a quick live build of like a Webflow site to show people. So I'm thinking, something on the shorter side, probably. Maybe talk about different business ideas that you could, people have built with no code and to kind of inspire people. Yeah.
And another thing you could do is you could use those like short form, like the TikTok type things, to like give a little snippet of what you're going to be talking about in like the longer thing, right? Like to let people know like what they can expect. I think a half hour would probably be good. Anything longer than that, I guess it depends on what time of the day it is, but I think something that people can just jump on and listen to or watch for half an hour. And would this be a live thing, or would it just be something that you release?
I guess my thought is it would be live. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it could just be like live. Maybe I could, open up. If I'm doing it live, it could be a Zoom room, but it could also be like synced. I could have like a Twitter space open. I could have, I could kind of have it be in multiple channels potentially to just get the maximum amount of people participating or joining.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Have you ever done a like the Twitter spaces? Or that'd be an interesting thing to try out too. Like I don't think it doesn't cost anything, does it? Like you can just do it. And
yeah, it doesn't. No, I haven't done one, and you're right. I think I should, and I think as I'm kind of thinking about it, I think one thing that kind of prevents me from doing it is it feels something that makes it feel more manageable to me is if I just put it on my calendar, Tuesday at noon for 30 minutes. Every Tuesday at noon, I'm just going to do a 30-minute thing. And that feels a lot more manageable. Otherwise, it almost feels like, oh, I'm creating this thing that is going to take up all my time with all these live calls or something like that. But in reality,
Yeah,
if it's just a short call that's scheduled every week on my calendar, then that feels easy, or something easy to try out. And I imagine it would be the kind of thing that if there was a Twitter space every Tuesday at noon, it's the kind of thing that it's good for maybe audience building as well, if there's something
oh
that
yeah,
yeah.
for sure. I mean, I see those things pop up every now and then, but I don't know, I don't remember seeing any other people really talk about no code stuff on there. I think it just depends on what you're talking about. But if you made it kind of a regular thing, I think that'd be interesting. Yeah, I think any way that you can engage with people and allow them to hop into something that's live and see whether or not what you're talking about that day interests them or not. I like the Twitter spaces because you can actually like engage, or like you can request to ask
Right.
a question, and I think that's really cool. It's like I don't know, it's a very approachable way to talk with somebody who's an expert in different fields and ask questions and things like that. So I don't know, I think that'd be cool to just hop on there someday and see, or schedule something, say like, hey, I'm going to do a Twitter space at whatever this time, add it to your schedule and just see how many people show up.
Yeah, no, I love that. I'm getting I think this is really good, and I agree with you. I've seen a couple of no code chats come up on Twitter Spaces, but it's nothing that's like happening every week or anything like
Right.
that. And I think it's the kind of thing that I'm sure I would do it, and the first, you probably just get like 2 people, and then you get 3
Yeah,
people, and then you get 5
for
people.
sure.
But yeah, no, I like that. Cool. Yeah, I think I'm going to experiment with that. And what makes, like I said, I think it makes it feel more manageable to just put it on my calendar. And I'm already trying to do 1 podcast interview a week, so this
Nice.
is shorter than that. So yeah, I think, and yeah, that's like, in terms of things weekly, I'm trying to do 1 podcast a week. The one other thing that I'm thinking about, and I'm curious what you think, is doing a monthly sprint, basically, that as long as you're a member of No Code MBA, you would be able to join. So it wouldn't be an additional cost. You just join as a monthly member or annual or lifetime. And the
Hmm.
sprint is basically, you sign up. Maybe when you sign up, now you're in like a special Slack room or something. And then you also, every week, maybe there's assignments on, that are kind of assigned to you that you're doing. So it's kind of like, it's not going to be a cohort based course in the sense that you are going to be having live courses 3 times a week that you're going to be joining. It's going to be more of
Hmm.
like a self-guided cohort where everyone is saying, okay, I'm committing to this month, I'm going to put in extra time, I'm going to submit these assignments, and I'm going to do it together. So I'm trying to kind of create a hybrid where I don't create this like big job for myself where I have to manage an entire cohort, which at some point I think maybe I will do. I think the cohorts are really valuable for students, and they're great businesses as well. But I kind of like the idea of just having something that's included in the No Code MBA membership, that also, if it's every month, I think that also might incentivize people to, if they're on a monthly membership, then they'll stay longer because they, every month there's something, coming up that they can kind of join, and it would just create a little bit more engagement. And the other thing that I'm thinking is it would create a little more urgency for people to get started and actually start doing things. Because I think one of the challenges with education platforms in general, which is why the cohort courses are really valuable, is because there's some sort of a time based thing that's going on. And if it's just I sign up and I get access, I think if you're not really motivated, you might just buy it and then say, I'll do it in a few months, or I'll do it when I have time, basically. So that's kind
Sure. Yeah.
of my idea of almost like a hybrid between a totally self-guided and then like a more intensive like cohort course that someone pays, $500 or $1,000 for to join.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, that's a good idea. So would you just have 1 per month, like like, what would an example be, like, of a sprint, like building something in
So,
like a certain tool or?
yeah, so I think what would be, it could be, yeah, maybe you can help me brainstorm this. So, on No Code MBA now, there's 6 kind of in-depth courses for different tools. So, maybe the first one would just be No Code 101, where, so one idea is that every month is just No Code 101. So it's for people who are getting started, and you just go through a bunch of different tools. And I already have all the content. So it would basically just say, week 1, you're going to do, lesson 1 and 2, you're going to learn Glide, build a to-do app in Glide, build a landing page in Cards. So kind of telling people when to do these different things. And I think the other option is kind of maybe switching off. And I mean, if there's enough people, you could have multiple sprints happening at once. I don't know that there'd be enough engagement at the moment, but if you did, one month could be Webflow, and you're going through Webflow. So I think that either way I think could potentially work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too.
One other thought I had was yeah, actually, no, that I'll leave it at that. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. No, I think those are good ideas. And I think, the nice thing, I don't, like you said, you already have a lot of that content built out. So it's like these things that we're talking about are pretty like easy, I think, to implement, or at least to try without spending too much time doing it, just to see what the engagement is. Like, I think I would for sure start doing like the Twitter Spaces thing first, like, because that's like super easy. And then you could toss in some of these other ideas and like ask people like what they think about, would they want to do some sort of like a sprint type thing, or see what other content people are interested in. Or that's right, I would definitely start with the Twitter Spaces and see what kind of engagement you get and kind of what people want. That's what I'd try.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Talk to you later.
Yeah, you too, man. See ya.
Bye.